Everyone loves a good hot take. It's hard not to love a good hot take. It gets the blood flowing. It gets the people going. And typically, I'm the one giving the hot takes. But I wanted to switch it up. I wanted to mix it up. I wanted to give you the opportunity to give the hot takes. So in this video, I'm going to reply to your hot takes. Yes, the BLVers have sent in their hot takes for the upcoming 2022 NFL season. So that's exactly what's going to happen in this video. I'm going to respond and react to your hot takes, your favorite hot takes for the upcoming NFL season. I asked the BLVers in the Discord to give me their favorite hot takes, and this is what we've got for you. If you're not already a member of the Discord, definitely join the Discord. It's where all the diehard BLVers and NFL fans are at. We have great discussions about the NFL, the NBA, movies, and more. So if you want to keep up to date with the channel, if you want to meet some like-minded NFL fans, definitely hop into the Discord. Great place to be. It's always very active. I'm in there all the time, so make sure to check out the BLV Discord. Link is in the description as well as in the pinned comment. Now, without further ado, let's analyze and respond to your hot takes. Kicking off the hot takes in this video, we have 3 hot takes from Ultra. By the way, shout out to Ultra. Ultra is a longtime BLVer. He is one of the core members of this community, and he's always helping out the channel, whether it's behind the scenes with the Instagram or also with graphics for rankings videos. Appreciate all the time Ultra spends, not only in the chat, in the Discord, but also helping me create some of this content. So shout out to Ultra, who's also doing some big things on his own channel. Make sure to check him out, and I'm sure he'll comment below. So shout out to Ultra. Let's get to these hot takes real quick. Now, let's begin with the first hot take, which I think is maybe my favorite hot take that he sends in here. Matthew Stafford, he believes, will be viewed as equal or better than Aaron Rodgers after the 2022 NFL season. And I completely agree with this. Now, I'm not saying this on a career scale, and I don't think Ultra is saying that as well. I think we can all agree that no matter what happens to Aaron Rodgers this season, that he will be looked at as the greater quarterback. But as a football player entering 2023, I think it's very possible for many fans to look at Matthew Stafford in a better way, in a greater way than Aaron Rodgers. And this is why. Matthew Stafford is entering year 2 with the Los Angeles Rams. He's going to be more comfortable in the system. He's going to have more of a rapport with the play caller, Sean McVay. There's going to be likes and dislikes that are clear and defined from this playbook and from this scheme that they can add on to as well and layer this scheme from a season ago, similarly to how Tom Brady had better numbers in year 2 than in year 1 with Tampa Bay. It's a very real thing, on top of having more chemistry with his weapons around him. Matthew Stafford could have an MVP type season this year. And when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, it's kind of the opposite. I think the Packers are going to be more run heavy with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. On top of that, Devontae Adams leaving does not give him a number 1 go-to target and a guy he can trust. We could see Rodgers struggle at times this season because of that. So I could definitely see Stafford playing at an MVP level, while we may see some regression from Aaron Rodgers, at least statistically. So Rodgers is still going to be great, but I think this is a very nice hot take from Ultra because I do think it makes sense. The number 2 hot take from Ultra here is that the Philadelphia Eagles will win a playoff game. And personally, I don't view this as much of a hot take. This is very cold because the Philadelphia Eagles, all educated NFL fans, should believe that they are the most talented team in the NFC East, in my opinion. You look at their roster, you compare it to the Cowboys, Washington, the Giants. The Eagles roster, offense, defense, blows it out of the water. Their offensive line, their defensive line, loaded. Yes, Jalen Hurts is a question mark, but you add A.J. Brown to the receiving core with Devontae Smith, with Dallas Goedert. This is a loaded team. And as long as Jalen Hurts can be a little bit better than last year, especially as a passer, you're cooking. You are really cooking. So I think the Eagles are expected to win a playoff game this year. And I get it. If they do win a playoff game, that would mean they're a top 4 team in their conference. So that would be maybe a little surprising to some. But when you really break it down, I think the Eagles have all the talent in the world to make that happen. And I think they're going to be hosting the first playoff game. So I think this is kind of a cold take from Ultra. I don't think it's much of a hot take, actually. The third hot take from Ultra for 2022 is that Derek Carr will be an MVP candidate in 2022. I agree with Ultra here. I think that Derek Carr is going to have perhaps his best season of his career. And I am one that does believe that Derek Carr is playing his best football right now of his career. I understand that a lot of people will point at 2016 as a phenomenal season statistically where he was in the MVP conversation. And that's fine, but I think as a mature mind of the position of quarterback and as a leader, I think Derek Carr has been unbelievable over the past year or two, and I feel like Derek Carr is not getting enough credit for that, and I do believe that 2022 will be the year where he does get that credit. I think it's going to start to buzz for him with the new coach and Josh McDaniels putting him in control of this passing offense. I think it's really a scheme that fits him extremely well. You have Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, Devontae Adams, his best buddy, a trio of receiving weapons that are so dynamic, an offensive line that might be a little questionable, but I do believe will get better this year. Can't be worse than last year. And you're in a spot where you're going to be playing a lot of primetime games, so a lot of people are going to take notice. And if the Raiders are a good team, which I believe they will be, that's going to put him right in the driver's seat for a possible MVP conversation. Not saying he's going to win it, but he will at least be in that convo. I do like it. The second BLVer to send in a hot take here is Lane, and Lane says this about the AFC, that the Chargers will miss the playoffs. The Buffalo Bills, the Chiefs, the Broncos, the Bengals, the Colts, the Dolphins, and the Ravens will all represent the AFC in the playoffs. He also says, oh, and Tua MVP. So I'm not sure if he's actually joking about the Tua thing, but no, Tua's not going to win the MVP. I'm sorry. Here's why, okay? Just logically. If anybody wins the MVP on the Miami Dolphins, it's going to be Tyreek Hill. That's the guy that's going to win MVP if anybody wins it. Nobody's going to win it, especially not Tua, so don't like that take. Now, in terms of the hot takes with the AFC, the real hot take here is that the Los Angeles Chargers will miss the playoffs, which I completely disagree with. I understand it's a hot take, but it's cold for me because the Chargers have one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. They have one of the best defenses on paper entering the season with massive upgrades across the board. They have a second-year coach now, not a first-year coach like last year, and they improved last year from the Anthony Lynn season the year previous. So they're only going up in their trajectory. I also believe that they probably should have made the playoffs last year in a lot of ways. And that was really with only an offensive team. They were an offensive first team, and the defense didn't really exist for them last year. I think the Chargers, a lot of people are kind of counting them out or trying to bet against them because of what they've been in the past. But I think that's always a mistake that people do and that people try to bet on the year after, right? Like the Chargers are a team that have consistently failed to meet expectations, but you should never bet that way. You should never place your hot takes through that analysis, right? That is a bad way to roll, in my opinion, because you've got to base everything on the here and now and not on the past. So the Chargers, I don't like that take. Now, in terms of the other teams making the playoffs, have no problems. I just think that the Chargers are going to find their way in there no matter the case, unless Justin Herbert gets hurt. But that's a whole nother discussion. The next BLVer to send in a hot take is Bus Boy. Shout out to Bus Boy, the young gun himself, the TikTok legend, Bus Boy. He says that Trubisky has a great season, making the Steelers' decision hard on what they do with Pickett and Trubisky. I like this take. This is definitely a hot take because I think the hot take is that Trubisky will be good this season for the Steelers. Now, I don't know what great really means here, Bus. I don't know what you define to be great as, like 20 touchdowns, 30 touchdowns, 40 touchdowns. What does this mean? How many yards? Like, there's no outline here. There's no criteria. But I think he generally means that people will think of Trubisky having a bounce back, so to speak, and sort of a breakthrough, and looked at as a quarterback that can start and I guess be, let's say, a top 20 player at the position, maybe. I guess I'll go with that. So I think it's interesting, though, because Mitch Trubisky was the second overall pick in a very good quarterback draft that featured Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and, of course, Trubisky. And Trubisky had to have a ton of talent to be able to be drafted at that spot. And he does. He has a strong arm. He can move. And I feel he has more physical ability. He's still young than Kenny Pickett, right? So when you look at it that way, would it be so absurd for Trubisky to bounce back with the Steelers, have a good season, and then be named their starter? Because think about it. Even though Kenny Pickett was a first-round pick, Mitch Trubisky was also a first-round pick, second overall, meaning that he's talented. When you watch the two play, it's clearer that Trubisky is more physically talented. But the question is, can Trubisky operate an NFL offense with his mind? That's always been the problem. Kenny Pickett, I do feel, is a smarter player. But we will see how that goes down. I think if Trubisky is successful, it will kind of be like a Jimmy G, Trey Lance situation where eventually Kenny Pickett will get his shine. But if the team's successful through Trubisky this year, he manages the team, he does a good job, well enough for them to be successful and get to the playoffs perhaps, then they're going to continue to roll with Trubisky maybe even into next year. So this is an interesting take. I think that this could very well happen. So I like the take. The next BLVer to send in a hot take is Jermari, who says that the Giants will win the NFC East. Now, I think this is an extremely hot take. It is spicy, absolutely, that the New York Giants will win the NFC East. Personally, I don't agree. If I were to bet on it, I would probably bet on the Eagles to win the division. Then I would take the Cowboys, and then maybe I take the Giants third. But based on the odds that you can get to bet on the Giants to win the division, I think it's a wise bet. It is a nice sleeper bet, which is what I discussed in my video earlier this offseason about the New York Giants, that they are perhaps a sleeper team in the NFL this year. Because their coaching will be vastly improved, the offensive line will be vastly improved, Saquon is healthy, Daniel Jones is better than people think, and Don Martindale always gets more out of a defense than you expect. So the Giants have a ceiling that we don't really know what it is, because the coaching was so awful a year ago. Kadarius Toney could take a big step forward. Kenny Golladay could be better. There's so many things that could happen for the Giants. Personally, I think that they could be better than the public believes, but it's going to be a lot for them to surpass the Cowboys and the Eagles in the NFC East and actually win the division. So it's a hot take that I respect, and I see what you're going for here, but I don't necessarily agree 100%. The next BLVer to send in a hot take is the Jim Thorpe stan himself. He also goes by the OG Lenny B. And Lenny says that the Indianapolis Colts will finish as a top 10 offense and a top 13 defense. They will also win a playoff game, he says. So that is a lot. That is a lot to wrap up into one take. But I do feel like everything here corresponds with each other. Like, if the Colts are good and if the Colts are going to win a playoff game, they're probably going to have a good offense. They're probably going to have a good defense. And when you look at Indianapolis, they're not a team with an overwhelming defense or an overwhelming offense. So they're not going to be a team where it's like they win a playoff game solely based on a dominant defense or solely based on a dominant offense. That's not really going to happen, right? They are going to win a playoff game because they are well-rounded and because they have talent on both sides and because they're good units on the offense and defense. And I think it all starts with their strength at the line of scrimmage, which I think is there. I like the coaching on both sides of the football, especially offense with Frank Reich, who's extremely underrated. And I do agree with this take, Mr. Jim Thorpe. I feel OG Lenny B that the Indianapolis Colts will win a playoff game this year, and I'm willing to go along with you saying that they will have a top 12 offense and defense this season. How you like that? The next BLVer to send in a hot take is the Jeter Downs fan who says that the New York Jets will make the playoffs. I don't agree. Like, that is a far-fetched hot take. It's certainly a hot take, no doubt. I don't agree. But I do feel the Jets are being underrated for how much talent they possess. You look at both sides of the football, and I don't think even people that watch and that actually cover this league understand how much talent they have. Zach Wilson, yes, is a big question mark entering year 2, but he has a lot of pieces around him to make this work. From the running back position, getting a big upgrade, to the receiving position, tight end and wide receiver, getting upgrades, 2 tight ends in free agency, 1 in the draft. Garrett Wilson with a first round pick. Elijah Moore entering his 2nd season. Corey Davis hopefully being healthy. Braxton Berrios, don't sleep on him. The offensive line, Lincoln Tomlinson added to the mix. Very good guard. Defensively, the whole defensive line will be intact and will be dangerous and scary. Like, Carl Lawson is back. Jermaine Johnson, first round pick on the opposite edge. They already have an extremely good interior defensive line. The linebacker position is a bit of a question mark, but safety, you've got Whitehead now. Corner, you add Reed and Sauce Gardner. So this is a team that has a lot of talent, a lot of young talent. I think that because they have a lot of young talent, it's going to take a season for them to mature before they can actually make a real push and do damage in this difficult division. I think they're going to be an inconsistent team that can hang with anybody, but I do feel it's going to be more losses than wins at the end of the day. And I do feel this is an AFC East that's far too difficult for a team like New York to kind of come out of nowhere. I think teams are going to have to get hurt. Things are going to have to happen for the Jets to really surpass the Patriots and Dolphins, because you don't see them winning the division over the Bills. So I like the take. I see where you're coming from here, but it's just a little too fast for my liking. The next hot take is sent in by Dried Ocean, a Bills fan who is talking about the Broncos here. He says that the Broncos will win the AFC West. And it's because they have a well-rounded roster and a better offensive system for Russ, which brings him back to form. I like the take by Dried Ocean, but here's what I'm going to say about it. I think it's far more likely, Dried Ocean, and I understand this is a hot take, that the Broncos are good, like you say, but they don't win the division. A lot like Tampa Bay a couple years ago. I feel like in order for them to win the division, teams like the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Raiders, they're all going to have to start slow or something, because even though the Broncos' schedule doesn't appear as hard as those teams, even though they're in the same division, I do feel like it's going to take some time for Russ to click with some of his teammates, with the system. It's a new head coach, it's a new coaching staff, it's a lot of new. So I feel like if the Broncos are good, it's going to be like a late season surge into the playoffs as a wild card team, more so than winning the division. I'd be slightly surprised if they won the division. I wouldn't be super surprised if they were very good and the best team in this division in the playoffs. That wouldn't surprise me that much. So I like the take kind of halfway. I'm about 50% in with Dried Ocean on this one. Jesse the King is the next BLVer to send in his hot take. Jesse says that Najee Harris will finish as a top 3 running back this year. Now, maybe he's talking about fantasy football, but I'm just going to go off real life. I think he's going off real life, but let's look at it both ways. So in terms of fantasy, I think it's far more realistic, in my opinion, that he would finish as a top 3 fantasy back than a top 3 real life running back, because I don't know if I will ever look at Najee Harris as a top 3 running back. And this is why. He's not explosive enough. He's not in the mold of running backs that I put up at the upper echelon of the great. I don't think he can take over games as a runner like Derrick Henry, like Jonathan Taylor, like the guys that I rank really high. As a receiver, he's productive. He's a productive player, and he certainly can carry the load. And that's why he can be very good as a fantasy player, because he has the upside to catch 70 plus passes. He also has the upside to carry and produce, 20 to 30 touches in a game, which is ridiculous in this day and age. So Najee Harris, because of his ability to carry the load for the Steelers and be that every down back, he can be a very good fantasy player and perhaps finish as a top 3 player. But in real life, I just don't think people are going to look at him as a top 3 running back. I do feel like the offensive line doesn't help him much. I do feel like the scheme holds him back, but I'm not in love with Najee Harris based on his rookie season, but I do think he is a good player. The next hot take is sent in by the general of the Discord. His name is Turtle, and Turtle says that the Defensive Player of the Year winner will be a second-year defensive player. Interesting. Now, I could see it being Parsons, but I could also see it not being Parsons. Parsons has the upside of being a 10-sack guy, plus having a ton of tackles, plus having a ton of forced fumbles and interception. He has the ability, because he plays so many different spots and so many different positions, and he's so great in terms of athletic, just an absolute animal, very rare player and versatile as well, that a lot of people will reward that. I feel like because he's a linebacker plus, people will want to reward his ability, because I think people love the linebacker position in general, but they find it hard in this day and age to reward it with trophies like the Defensive Player of the Year, like that accomplishment, because I don't think people look at the linebacker position the way they used to. So with Parsons having that upside to get a ton of sacks, it makes him a lot more viable than, let's say, a Fred Warner to win this award. So I do really like that pick and the potential of Parsons winning this award, at least at some point. Maybe not this year, but some point in his career. I do think, though, that the Cowboys defense is far more likely to drop this year, which will hurt his chances, because I don't see them turning the football over as much as they did a year ago, which they relied on a lot. Now, if it's not Parsons, it's tough for me to say that a corner can win this award, especially a second-year corner. I feel like, let me give you an alternative here. I feel like Jalen Phillips would maybe be the guy that I would look at as the second option for this hot take. I feel like Jalen Phillips being on the Dolphins, being an edge rusher, I feel like he has 12 plus sack upside, and if he can really take off this year and maybe lead the league in sacks, I mean, it's a possibility. I don't know. It's crazy talk, but I guess it's a possibility, right? He was pretty good as a rookie. And then I'll throw a third one in there. Christian Barmore. Just gonna say, Turtle. Just gonna say, Christian Barmore is the third one, okay? But I don't hate the hot take, especially Parsons. The next BLVer to send in not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, 5 hot takes is Zane. Zane sends in 5 hot takes. Appreciate it, man. Let's begin with his Detroit Lions bias here. That he says that the Detroit Lions will win the division and finish top 4 in the conference. Absolutely ludicrous. I do not know what this man is smoking, but it is something special, because you are not making the playoffs with the goofy one. Not only that, but this defense is a far ways away from taking the goofy one to the playoffs. I just don't see it. I don't see it with Jared Goff. I like what the Lions have done. I do think they'll be a better team, and I think they will be the 3rd best team in this division, but not the best. And I don't see them certainly as a top 4 team in the NFC. Sorry. To your next take, you're talking about TJ Hockenson being a top 4 tight end. Just a general comment here. I feel like TJ Hockenson can be a top 4 tight end. I feel like he's produced as a top 4 tight end before. 2020 was a big year for him, but not last year, and not based on last year entering this year. And when you really look at that discussion, there's no way you can put him in the top 4. Maybe after 2022, if he has a big year, possibly. But you look at it right now, Kelsey, Andrews, Waller, Pitts, Kittle, Goddard. I mean, those guys are really, really, really good. And I think you could put Hockenson in the Dallas Goedert tier with Gronk retired. That is certainly cool. but not any higher than that. The next hot take from Zane is that DeAndre Swift is top 7. Now, again, he says is top 7, so I think he believes DeAndre Swift is a top 7 running back, like right now, at this moment in time, which I don't think you can say that based on his production, based on his consistency, based on his health, based on his track record. Does he have talent? Absolutely. Does he have the upside to become a top 7 running back? Absolutely. Based on his receiving chops, based on his route running ability, and based on his vision and his explosiveness. All these things line up. He also has an offensive line to block for him, which is absolutely huge. So in 2022, could he become a top 7 running back? Yeah, but he isn't right now. So I don't agree with that take as of right now. I know it's a hot take. Now to the non-Detroit Lions hot takes from Zane. Trey Lance will be a bust, he says. I kind of agree. I think if you were to ask me, gun to the head, will Trey Lance be a superstar or a bust? Right now, from what I've seen so far, I would say he will be a bust. Can he change that perspective? Sure, absolutely. But I think this is a fair hot take, and it's a hot take because a lot of people disagree. Because his situation is so good and so primed for a great quarterback to happen that it would be very hard for him not to succeed, which is why this is a hot take. So I like it. The next hot take and the final hot take is that Drew Brees is not a top 7 quarterback of all time. This is an all-time hot take from Zane, and I agree. I think this is a great hot take, and I feel this is a correct hot take. Not just hot, but it is, in my opinion, a fact, let's say. Drew Brees is not a top 7 quarterback of all time. And it's because of the resume, right? Like, a lot of people are going to say that he is because of his achievements, his records, the yards, the touchdowns, the stats. But when you take away the stats based on the era he played in, and you just look at the dominance, you look at the achievements, Drew Brees is not top 7 of all time. He's never won an MVP. He only has 1 Super Bowl. He wasn't overly successful in the playoffs. And even in the regular season, he had inconsistencies. On top of that, he was probably alongside the best offensive coach of his era and in a dome environment for much of his career with some pretty good teams. So Drew Brees is a very good quarterback. One of the greatest of all time. I would say he's around the 9, 10, 11, 12 range for me. And that's why I agree, because I don't think he's top 7 of all time. Now that Zane is done with, we have Cubero with our next hot take. He says that Carson Wentz will win MVP. No. Just no. The next 2 hot takes are sent in by KDC himself, Kevin Durkant. Durkant says first that Jalen Hurts will be the number 1 fantasy quarterback this year. I like this hot take. I don't necessarily agree. I feel like Josh Allen is most likely going to be the guy, but this is a hot take for a reason. I believe Jalen Hurts is going around the 6th or 7th quarterback in drafts, and he has a lot of upside in fantasy because of the rushing ability. We've seen that Jalen Hurts can carry the football 15 to 20 times in a game if you ask him to. I think you're going to see him run the ball a lot this year. I think A.J. Brown is going to help his productivity and his efficiency as a passer. I think you could see a Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson 2019. I think it is possible. This is a dominant offensive line. This is going to be a good running game. And I feel like Jalen Hurts, because of that rushing upside that he possesses, he has 10 plus touchdown upside. And if the Eagles are as good as we think, this could very well happen. So I think that this is a fair hot take. Do I agree? Would I bet money on it? Probably not. But I do think that it is a solid take. Now, the second hot take is a little wild, and I do feel like people are going to get very angry at it. It is that the Kansas City Chiefs, he believes, will miss the playoffs this year. He says that it is because they've downgraded their offense, obviously with Tyreek Hill leaving, and their schedule is extremely difficult. Now, I agree with his points. The offense will be worse, and I do agree that the schedule is absolutely brutal. But this is Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. So for that, I just feel like it's a floor that a lot of other teams don't possess. And I believe that at the end of the day, that floor will squeak them into the playoffs. Do I think that they're going to be a dominant team, a Super Bowl contender? No, I don't. I don't at all. Like, I'm not even thinking of it. But I do believe that they're going to be a top 7 AFC team. I think their floor is way too high. Their defense, I think, is actually sneaky better than you think. And I feel like their offensive line is pretty dominant, on top of having a pretty good depth chart of receivers. You know, it's not electric, it's not electrifying, but with Juju, with MVS, with Sky Moore, with Mecole Hardman, they have 4 options to work with. Remember, this is a team that really had 1, maybe 2 productive receivers last year, right? Travis Kelce was a tight end, so not including him. Tyreek Hill and Mecole Hardman, kinda, right? This team will have better production from Juju, and MVS is a good deep threat. Juju's a good short to intermediate threat, so it balances each other out. Kelce's still there. And then on top of that, Sky Moore, I think, could have a big rookie season. So they also added Ronald Jones. Like, I think there's enough there on offense for them to be a really good unit. Not phenomenal, not historic, but really good. And yes, it's a tough schedule, but I think they'll find their way through it due to coaching. So I don't agree with this take, but I could see it happening. I just don't think it's going to happen very often in the simulation. The final hot takes are sent in by the hot take master himself of the BLV community. His name is Nicholas Gill. Nick Gill has 3 different hot takes for us, beginning with the first. The Philadelphia Eagles will make the NFC Championship. Another Eagles hot take, and I've talked enough about the Eagles in this video, honestly, to the point where you know where I stand with them. I think they're a good team. I think they could very well make the NFC Championship, and I'll say this, Nick Gill, don't be surprised if I have them in my predictions to go to the NFC Championship. Don't be that surprised. Not saying I do, but saying it maybe. The second hot take from Nicholas Gill is that Darnell Mooney will finish top 10 in receiving yards. I don't think this is much of a hot take, honestly. I think, Nick, you went a little cold here. I think it's because you're a Bears fan. You don't want to be biased or whatever. I think if you would have said top 5, it would have been much hotter and definitely a hot take. I feel like at top 10, I feel like he probably should land around the top at least 15, and if not top 10, because he's the only receiver they got. I mean, somebody's got to catch the ball. I really like him in fantasy, so I think this is a good hot take, and I think it's accurate. The third take here from Nicholas Gill is about his boy, Justin Jefferson. Absolutely loves Justin Jefferson. I think he has his poster on his wall, and he has a man crush on him. Justin Jefferson, he says, will break the receiving yards record this year. I don't agree, Nick Gill. I just think that's too much. I think that's too spicy. It is definitely the spiciest take in this video, but it's too much. It's too hot. Because Cooper Kupp did what he did last year. I can't see anybody being better than that in my mind. Like, I can't see it. I just can't. I can't physically picture it. Like, I can't see Justin Jefferson torching the world on fire. I think he is an incredible player, and I think he will be the most productive receiver this year, and I do think he'll be the #1 fantasy receiver this year. But I do not see him breaking the receiving yards record. I just don't see it 1 year after what Cooper Kupp did. I just don't get it. I don't see it. I'm sorry. But those are your BLVer hot takes. Let me know what you thought of your hot takes, and let me know what you thought of my responses in the comment section below, and let me know your hot takes for the upcoming 2022 NFL season if you were not in this video. Appreciate all of you watching this. Gronk, spike the like button, subscribe, and don't forget to join the BLV Discord for a deeper dive into the BLV community. Peace.